My name is Isabel Mercado, and I never imagined that I would be telling this story not like this. I've spent most of my life grounded in science. I'm a nurse. I deal with facts, numbers, and charts. Life and death are supposed to follow rules. But what happened to me on April 3rd, 2023 broke every rule I knew. The morning began like any other. I was running late trying to get my 7-year-old son Luis ready for school. He was half asleep, dragging his bag behind him while I clutched my coffee and keys in one hand. The city was just starting to wake up. The sky was gray, the air soft, and for a moment, everything felt normal. We reached the crosswalk on West Avenue. Traffic had picked up, but I was used to it. I held Luis's hand tightly, checked the road, and we began to cross. I remember looking down at him, his sleepy eyes, his tiny fingers in mine, and then everything shattered. A loud screech, a flash of red, screams, then nothing. No pain, no sound, just silence. A silence so complete it swallowed me whole. I thought I had passed out, maybe hit my head. But what came next? It wasn't sleep, it wasn't unconsciousness, it was something else entirely. I was floating, detached. And then I saw it, my body lying motionless on the pavement. People were shouting, phones were filming, a woman screamed for help. And there in the middle of the chaos was Luis, crying, calling out for me. And yet, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel sorrow. I felt peace. A strange, holy kind of peace. It wrapped around me like a warm wind. Every burden, gone. Every ache in my heart, lifted. And in its place, clarity. A clarity that terrified me and comforted me at the same time. Then I heard it. A sound, footsteps, calm but undeniable. Not echoing in the air, but inside me. Then a voice, low, steady, and so full of love that I could barely hold myself together.
Isabel, come with me.
I turned, or at least I think I did. And there he was. I didn't need to ask who he was, I just knew. The light around him wasn't just light, it was alive. His presence didn't demand anything from me. It embraced me, like he had known me all my life and still loved me. My thoughts raced. Am I dead? What about my son? Why is this happening? But before I could even speak, he looked into me, not just at me, and I felt everything inside me still.
Time is short. There are things you must see and things you must speak.
The way he said it, it wasn't a command. It was a calling. Not one I asked for, but one I couldn't refuse. I felt myself pulled forward not by force, but by truth. A truth deeper than anything I had ever known. My soul was already moving, already saying yes, even as my mind trembled. I looked one last time at my body on the ground, at Luis sobbing beside me, and I knew this was real. I was somewhere between life and eternity, not asleep, not dreaming, not gone, but chosen for something I could not yet understand. And in that strange sacred in-between, my journey began. Before the accident, before the light, before Jesus spoke my name, I was just a woman trying to survive the weight of ordinary pain. No one would have looked at me and thought I was anything special. I was quiet, practical, the kind of person who carried her world alone and never complained. But behind my silence was a storm I had lived with for years. My husband Marco passed away 2 years ago, stage 4 colon cancer. It tore through him like fire, and there was nothing I could do. I watched him shrink away in our bedroom, pale and broken, while Luis, only 5 years old at the time, kept asking when Daddy was going to play with him again. I had to lie to my son every night just to get him to sleep. After Marco died, the world didn't stop for me. I went back to work a week after the funeral. Bills don't care about grief. The hospital needed nurses. My son needed food. I became everything: mother, father, provider, comforter, protector, and somehow nothing all at once. Because inside, I was hollow. I used to believe in God. Not the Sunday morning for show kind of belief, but real personal faith. My father, Antonio, had been a preacher when I was young. He wasn't perfect, but he loved the Lord. I remember his voice echoing through our small living room, preaching with passion, even when the only congregation was me and my mother. I used to sit on his lap while he read the Psalms, his calloused hands wrapped around that worn-out Bible he carried everywhere. And I believed, I really did. But faith is easy when life is gentle. And mine hadn't been gentle in a very long time. First, my father died when I was 17, sudden heart failure. I found him slumped over his desk, the Bible still open beneath his hand. That image haunted me through nursing school, through my wedding, through every good and bad moment that followed. Then came Marco's cancer. Then the pandemic. Then the endless shifts at the ER. And the empty apartment I came home to every night where Luis would already be asleep on the couch, waiting for a mother too tired to smile. Church became a memory. Prayers became whispers I barely believed. I didn't hate God, I just felt forgotten. Like maybe I was too ordinary for him to notice. Like maybe all those promises in the Bible were for other people. Better people, stronger people. Not women like me, women who cried in silence, who walked through fire with clenched teeth and kept going even when their hearts were ash. But there were moments, small ones, when I felt something stir. Like when Luis would randomly say, "Mama, Jesus loves you," out of nowhere. Or when a patient would grab my hand in the ER and say, "God bless you," with trembling fingers and tears in their eyes. Little moments that scratched at the walls I had built, but never enough to make me believe again, not fully. I remember one night in particular, just a few weeks before the accident. I had put Luis to bed and stayed on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. I whispered something I hadn't said in years. If you're still out there, if you still see me, say something, anything. But the sky didn't answer, at least not that night. And so I kept going. I worked, I mothered, I endured. But deep down, I was waiting for a break in the silence, waiting for the God I used to know to prove that he still knew me. I never imagined he would answer me, not with words, but with eternity. Boom. There are no earthly words that can fully describe what happened next, but I will try. After Jesus first spoke my name, I felt myself being drawn. Invited into something I can only call holy. It wasn't a tunnel, it wasn't a beam of light. It was more like a realm opening around me, one that had been there all along, but hidden behind the veil of this world. And once I stepped in, reality itself changed. The colors were the first thing I noticed. They weren't just brighter, they were alive. They pulsed, shimmered, breathed. I could feel color like emotion. Deep golds like mercy, soft blues like hope, crimson like courage. Everything had meaning, like I had entered the language of heaven, not spoken with words, but felt with every fiber of who I was. There was no gravity, yet I was grounded. No wind, yet the air moved like a song. It was all so strange, and yet so familiar, like coming back to a place I had always known but forgotten. Then I saw him. At first I thought it was just a memory surfacing, a projection of my own longing. But as he walked toward me, I knew it was my father, Antonio Mercado, my papa. I hadn't seen him in nearly 20 years. Not since that day I found him lifeless, Bible still open on his desk. But now, he was radiant. He looked like he did when I was a child, strong, joyful, full of quiet fire. There was a glow about him, but not artificial. It came from within, like he had been remade in some glorious image of what he was always meant to be. He smiled as he came closer. "Isabel," he said, his voice like a warm blanket wrapped around a cold soul. "You don't have to be afraid." I wanted to run to him, to cry into his chest like I did as a girl when nightmares stole my sleep. But I stood frozen, overwhelmed by awe. He opened his arms, and when I stepped into them, something eternal passed between us, not in words but in knowing. Every unanswered question I had carried since his death, every tear I had wept, Every prayer I thought had vanished into silence, all of it was understood in that single embrace. "You've been so strong," he whispered, "but it's time to stop carrying what was never yours to hold." Then he pulled back and his eyes turned toward something behind me. "He's waiting for you." I turned, and the light changed, brighter, deeper, holier. And then I saw him. No painting, no statue, no dream or story had ever come close. He didn't float or shine with glitter. He simply was the definition of love and power combined. Fully human, yet fully something else. A presence that made everything else seem like shadow. His eyes met mine, and I broke. Because in that gaze he saw everything. The tired nurse, the grieving widow, the silent mother, the doubting daughter. He saw every failure, every doubt, every unspoken scream in the dark. And yet there was no condemnation in him, only love. Fierce, eternal, consuming love. I fell to my knees, not out of fear, but reverence. I couldn't look at him and remain standing. The gravity of who he was pulled me downward, and yet his love lifted me higher than I had ever been.
Isabel, I've been with you through every silent cry, every long night, every prayer you thought no one heard.
I couldn't speak. My heart was unraveling.
You are not forgotten. You were never alone. And now, there is something I must show you. Something my people must understand before I return.
His hand extended toward me, not forcefully, but gently, invitingly. As it touched my shoulder, a warmth spread through me that made me weep. Not because I was sad, but because I finally felt seen, completely and unconditionally. In that moment, I knew two things with absolute certainty. One, this was not the end of my life. And two, I was standing in the beginning of something greater than myself. I had been chosen, not because I was perfect, but because I was willing. The moment Jesus touched my shoulder, the light around us began to shift. It grew brighter, sharper, almost electric, like the truth itself was preparing to unfold before my eyes. He didn't speak, not at first, but his presence alone told me something sacred was coming. And then, the vision began. Suddenly, I wasn't standing in that realm of peace anymore. I was looking into something else, a window into the future. What I saw wasn't a dream. It was too detailed, too real. My soul knew it was a warning. The first vision came like a wave crashing through silence. Jesus called it the great distraction. I saw people everywhere, at home, on trains, in restaurants, completely lost in their screens. Mothers scrolling while their children cried for attention. Fathers staring at glowing phones while dinner sat cold on the table. In one scene, a family was seated together, but no one was speaking. Their faces were lit not by warmth, but by artificial light. I saw churches too, filled with people, hands raised, but their minds elsewhere. Worship had become performance. Prayer had become routine. Faith had become muted. I could feel it, the weight of silence in their souls. Then Jesus spoke.
This is how the enemy wins. Not with blood, but with distraction. Not with violence, but with noise. They have forgotten what matters. Tell them to return to me. Tell them to silence the world and open their ears to heaven.
Before I could breathe, the vision faded, and the second began. Jesus called it the Great Deception. I saw the sky open with radiant colors, lights that moved like living rainbows. People gathered, pointing, marveling. Then they came. Beings not of this world, beautiful, majestic, glowing. They spoke to humanity with words of peace, unity, harmony. They promised healing. They offered wisdom. They said they had come to help us evolve. But their smiles hid something sinister. There were no crosses, no truth, no blood, no repentance, only power and lies. Even pastors were embracing them. I watched as churches fell into silence, replaced by stages of spiritual showmanship.
They will twist my words, mix truth with poison. Even my own will be tempted to believe. Tell them, my word is the anchor. Nothing else will stand.
The vision dissolved and gave way to the third. The moment it appeared, I felt something shift in my chest. Hope. Jesus called it the Great Awakening. I saw people, millions, crying out to God, not for show, but from their knees. Worship erupted in living rooms, in hospitals, in prisons. Teenagers were laying hands on the sick. Addicts were throwing away their drugs. Broken families were praying together. Miracles unfolded unseen before. Blind eyes opened. Old wounds healed. Generations reconciled. It was revival, pure and raw. But then I saw the backlash. Governments outlawing worship. Christians imprisoned. Churches burned. Still, the joy didn't die. Their faith only grew stronger.
My spirit will fall on the humble, and they will shine in the darkness. But the cost will be high. Tell them to count it, and still follow.
And then came the fourth vision, the final one. The sky tore open, not like a crack, but like a veil being pulled back. There were no clouds, just light, overwhelming light. Trumpets sounded not like music, but like the sound creation itself would make if it could speak. And there he came, Jesus, not the suffering servant, but the reigning king. Fire in his eyes, power in his steps, angels in formation behind him. The world stopped, every knee dropped, every tongue confessed. Some out of love, some out of fear, but none could resist his glory.
Tell them, I am coming, and I am closer than they think. No one knows the hour, but the signs are already here.
And just like that, the visions faded. The light softened, the air settled. I was still on my knees. My heart was racing, my soul trembling. But I felt no fear, only this unshakable clarity. What I had seen was not meant to scare me, but to prepare me, and to prepare others. As the final vision faded, the world around me began to dim. Not into darkness, but into a soft and sacred quiet. I was still kneeling, still trembling. The presence of Jesus lingered like a fire that no longer burned but warmed. His eyes were still on me, gentle, focused, eternal. Then he placed his hand over my heart. The moment he touched me, I felt something rush through my being. It wasn't pain, it wasn't energy, it was love, pure soul-restoring love. And in that moment, I knew whatever came next, I would never be the same.
Isabel, I am sending you back.
I froze. Back.
Your time here is not yet finished. There are people who need to hear, hearts that need awakening. I have placed my words within you, not to keep, but to speak. You will feel doubt. You will face resistance. But do not fear. My spirit will be with you.
I wanted to stay. I wanted to remain in that place where peace wrapped around every part of me, where sorrow could not enter, but his voice, it carried a weight that was both commanding and comforting. There was no begging, no pressure, just certainty. I had been chosen, not because I was qualified, but because I was willing.
This world is running out of time, but even now, there is hope. Go. Tell them, I am coming soon.
And with that, everything changed. The light around me began to fold inward, like being pulled through a pinhole in eternity. Colors collapsed. The sound of heaven faded. My spirit was falling, fast. I felt the heaviness of a body, the weight of the world returning. And then pain, real earthly pain. My chest was burning. My lungs screamed for air. And I heard shouting human voices close, urgent. She's breathing, someone cried. She's back. My eyes opened slowly. Blinding light, sirens, a mask pressed to my face. The metallic scent of blood. I was lying on the pavement, my arms strapped down, my legs numb. I couldn't speak, could barely blink. But I was there, alive. The paramedics looked at me like they'd seen a ghost. I had been dead for 11 minutes. Inside the ambulance, as they rushed me to the hospital, I tried to process what had happened. The visions, the voice, the weight of it all. But my brain couldn't contain it, and my heart couldn't yet explain it. Days passed, I was transferred to a recovery room. I had broken 2 ribs, suffered a severe concussion, a minor spinal bruise. But the doctors couldn't understand how I survived the impact. They said it didn't make sense, that I should have had brain damage, that the speed of the jeepney, the angle, the velocity, all pointed to a fatal injury. They kept calling it a miracle, but I knew what it really was. Still, I didn't speak. Not at first. How do you tell people that you met Jesus, that you saw the end of the age, that you were given a message not just for yourself, but for the world? Even as I lay in my hospital bed staring at the ceiling, part of me wondered if I imagined it all. Maybe it was a near-death hallucination, a trauma-induced dream. The logical part of me, the nurse, the woman who believes in science, she tried to dismiss it. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, heard his voice, felt his hand over my heart, and I couldn't deny it. One afternoon, my son Luis crawled into the bed beside me. He held my hand and whispered, "Mama, you were with Jesus, weren't you?" I turned to him, tears in my eyes. "Why do you say that?" "Because when I prayed for you to come back, I saw him in my dream. He told me you had something to do." In that moment, every doubt I had shattered. It was real, all of it. And now, I had a choice: stay silent or speak. The first time I told my story, I couldn't get through it without trembling. It was 2 weeks after the accident. I was still wearing a neck brace, still moving slowly, still waking up in the middle of the night from dreams that felt more like memories than imagination. I had been journaling everything, every vision, every word, every detail of what I saw and heard. It burned in my chest like fire, and keeping it inside had become unbearable. So I called a few close friends, 2 nurses from the hospital, and my cousin, Maria, who used to lead worship before walking away from church after her divorce. We met in my living room. I didn't know what I expected: curiosity, maybe a little sympathy. But what I didn't expect was silence. The kind that falls when a truth too heavy for words enters the room. I told them about the light, about my father, about the 4 visions, the distraction, the deception, the awakening, and the return. I told them Jesus was coming soon, and that he had chosen someone as ordinary, as tired, as broken as me to carry his warning. Maria cried. One nurse stared blankly. The other shifted uncomfortably, like she didn't want to be rude, but didn't know how to respond. Then Maria whispered, "I've had dreams too, but I thought they were just guilt." The next day, she came back with her Bible, dusty but open. That was the beginning. Word began to spread slowly. Some people leaned in, others backed away. A few accused me of attention-seeking. A former doctor I worked with sent me a message saying I needed psychiatric help. Trauma can do strange things to the brain, he wrote. But the strange thing was, the more I shared, the more people began to awaken. Not all, not even most, but some. One woman in my old church messaged me in the middle of the night. She had been struggling with suicidal thoughts. She said she had cried out to God that evening and asked for a sign. An hour later, she saw my testimony on someone's Facebook story. She said, "I don't know why, but I felt like Jesus was sitting beside me telling me to keep breathing." She hasn't missed a day of prayer since. Another man, someone I didn't even know, showed up at my apartment building. He had heard about me from a coworker. Said he used to be deep in New Age practices, crystals, channeling energy readings. But he had a dream where a woman told him Jesus is not a symbol. He's real, and he's returning. When he saw my face on a video clip, he said it was the same woman from the dream. Me. I didn't know what to say. I still don't. Because I'm no prophet, no preacher. I'm a widow, a nurse, a tired mother. But God used me anyway. And that in itself is the miracle. Not the survival, not even the visions. The miracle is that God still speaks. And people are listening. Of course, there are still critics. Some mock. Some say I made it all up. Others warn me to be careful. Don't scare people, they say. But how can I stay silent? I saw what's coming. I felt his return burning like fire across the sky.
Not all will believe you, but those with ears to hear, they will know. Speak anyway, obey me, not the world.
So I keep speaking, sometimes in churches, sometimes over coffee, sometimes through tears, at 2 a.m. on the phone with someone who thinks their prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. And every time I share the message, something happens. Not always dramatic, but something. A trembling lip, a nod, a whispered prayer. A door opens. Because Jesus isn't looking for crowds. He's looking for hearts. And if one heart awakens, it's worth the cost. I never asked for this. I didn't seek it. But now that I've seen, I can't unsee. Now that I've heard, I can't pretend I didn't. The truth is alive inside me, and it won't let me rest. There's a fire inside me now, one that refuses to go out. Not because I'm brave, not because I'm perfect, but because I've seen too much to stay silent. After you've looked into the eyes of Jesus, after you've heard the thunder of heaven and felt the trembling of the earth beneath the weight of His return, you're never the same, and you can never be quiet again. We are living in a time unlike any before, a time when distractions have become more addictive than truth, when lies are dressed as light, and when even believers are lulled to sleep by comfort and routine. But the clock is ticking. I saw it. I felt it. The enemy isn't trying to destroy people with obvious evil. He's lulling them to sleep with comfort, entertainment, busyness, and fake peace. And we, the people of God, are in danger of missing the hour. Jesus didn't show me those 4 visions so I could be impressed. He didn't allow me to walk through the veil of eternity so I could return with a good story. He sent me back because time is short, and most of us don't know it. The great distraction is already here. It's on your phone, in your habits, in your family dinners where no one speaks. The great deception is unfolding, and it won't look like darkness. It will look like beauty, power, revelation, progress. But it will be a lie. The great awakening has begun, quietly, in broken homes, in prison cells, in prayer closets. It's rising like a tide, but the persecution will come with it. And the great return, oh God, the return, it's closer than we dare imagine. I saw it. It wasn't symbolic. It wasn't metaphorical. It was Jesus, in glory, in power, in justice. And every soul on earth will fall to their knees either in worship or in terror.
Tell them, Isabel, I am coming soon, not as a whisper, but as a roar, not in secret, but in full glory. Warn them not to delay, not to gamble with grace, not to trade eternity for convenience.
So I'm warning you now, wake up, shake off the numbness. You don't have time to figure it out later. You don't need to have all the answers to return to Him. You just need to respond. Open the Bible again. Fall on your knees again. Cry out again. Come back to your first love. This is not about religion. This is not about following rules. This is about your soul and where it will stand when the sky opens. I speak not as a preacher. I'm not one. I speak not as a saint. I'm far from it. I speak as a woman who died and was allowed to return so that someone, maybe you, might live. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have your life together. You just need to be willing to say, Jesus, I want you. I need you. Save me. And He will.
I am not distant. I am not silent. I stand at the door and knock. Let me in before it's too late.
This is your invitation, not from me, from Him. The world is shaking. The sky is rumbling. The word is being fulfilled. And still, His arms are open. Come, come now. Come while there is still time. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. Not because it's about me, but because the message behind it matters. I didn't come back from the dead to be believed. I came back to be obedient. And the truth is, this story isn't mine to keep. It was never just about what I saw or what I felt. It was about you, about us, about a generation that is drifting, about a world that is forgetting what truly matters, and about a Savior who is still calling, still knocking, still waiting. Jesus is real. Eternity is real. And the time we have left is not something we can afford to waste. The distractions will keep coming. The lies will keep growing. But so will the awakening. And one day, maybe sooner than we think, He will return. So I ask you now, not as someone who has it all figured out, but as someone who has touched eternity and come back trembling. Please don't ignore the voice inside you. If your heart is stirring, if something in you is waking up, don't push it down. Respond right now. Start by praying, even if it's messy, even if it's just one sentence. Jesus hears. He always hears. Open your Bible again, not to memorize, but to encounter. Talk to someone you trust. Ask questions. Seek truth. Not the kind that's popular, but the kind that sets you free. And if this story has spoken to you, if it's challenged you, moved you, or reminded you that God hasn't forgotten you, please help share it. There are others out there who need to hear this. People just like you, just like me. People who think they're too broken, too far gone, too ordinary to be seen by God. But they're not. And maybe this is the message that will reach them. So take a moment now to like this video, not for numbers, but so it reaches more eyes. Leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from or how this story spoke to your heart. Your words might be the encouragement someone else needs to keep going. And please subscribe to this channel, not just to follow another story, but to stay connected with a growing community of people who are hungry for more of God, more truth, more awakening, more of what's real in a world full of imitation. This is only the beginning. There are more testimonies to come, more voices rising, more signs unfolding. But today, you heard mine. Thank you for listening. May the peace of Jesus fill your heart, and may His return find you ready.